Welcome to another SV Lynx video. This is going to be a really busy week. We got our kit in and it's still not completely inside the containers. As you saw from our last video, we did get all the small pieces in, but there's a huge stack of big pieces that we're going to have to deal with. And there's a lot more stuff we're going to have to do this week. So let's just go by day. So this is Thursday, and so Friday, we're going to have to sort all of the pieces, get them out of that big stack so that we're ready to move them into the container.
And Saturday, we're going to move the large pieces into the container, and we're doing it that day because we need a lot of extra help, and that's a day that many people can come over and help us.
Yeah, some of our crew are off on the weekends from their regular jobs so that
Yeah.
they can help. All right, then Sunday, we're going to take a little break because we deserve it. And Brian and I are going to go do a little mountain biking. But we're still going to work. We're going to go back to the lot afterwards, and we're going to install all of the security lighting.
Then Monday, we're going to be adding some ribs to the shelving in the smaller container because some of the shelves are sagging with the weight of the small pieces that we loaded onto them. So we're going to shore that up.
That's going to be a big job, but we've got a way figured out to do it that hopefully will work out. We'll see. We'll show you how that goes. And then on Tuesday, we need to prepare the canopy. So we'll start assembling the roof portions of it and just get it all ready to be raised.
And then Wednesday, we're going to raise the canopy using our friend and his bobcat to do that heavy lifting for us.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting day. We're going to have some contraptions we're going to have to build to make that work. So after that, the canopy's up, we'll have some shade. So at that point, we're going to build all the forms that will be used to pour cement the next day. And those forms are going to be in 6 different little groupings of 6 pads. 4 of them are to hold the cradles that hold the whole boat up the whole time we're working on it. And then there's 2 more at the bow and stern, which helps us build the canoes. So we got to get that all formed up.
Yep, and also that day, we're going to prepare the buckets that we need to put some cement in to really stabilize the canopy that we raised.
Yeah, so the legs are actually going to be in these 5-gallon buckets, and we're going to fill them all with cement.
And then Friday, the cement truck's coming, and we're going to pour the cement.
That's absolutely right. So then Brian and I will trowel it all out. And that is what we're going to do just this week in the next 7 days. So we really got our work cut out for us. And then over the weekend, we're going to get you'll see this in the absolute next video after this, but we're going to get ready for the strip planking, and that begins Monday. So we've got to get each of these days done, otherwise we'll never get to what we want to do, which is build the boat starting Monday. All right, let's get to it.
Yep. Okay, so this is the last day of moving the big pieces into the high cube container. So this is it.
All right, so we still got deck pieces? Yeah. All deck pieces. In the week since we unloaded our catamaran kit from the arriving container, we've been sorting all the various pieces into types. On the unloading day, we placed most of the kit pieces on the yard, on pallets or boards, and quickly scrambled to get a second container before the rain arrived. Then, we built shelving inside the 20-foot container to hold all the smaller sections, again, grouped by their type. You may watch that video by following this link, or the one down in the description. With all the small groups in the new container, it was now time to sort the larger panels and get them into the 40-foot high cube container. And now, we're moving over a couple of hull pieces so that we free up the larger panels we need right away to start strip planking the hulls. All the pieces we are stacking on the right side are being added in order of usage so that we don't have to move them to get to the next needed grouping. Once we sorted them into types out on the lot, which Brian and I did yesterday, we could see that there was still a lot to go even in this 40-foot container. So we loaded all the other types of materials, fiberglass rolls, boxes of microfibers, fairing compound, various boat parts, etc., and moved them all to my garage at home. That left additional room at the back of the container where we could load the mid-sized panels. That way, the long pieces would be separated from them and fit in the container with the path down the middle. To get these larger panels into the high cube container, we needed a large crew since some of these pieces are heavy and awkward to move. Here, on the left, you can see the larger panels for the strip planking, which begins in just a few days. Behind those are even larger panels that will be used for making the bridge deck, which comes soon after the strip planking of the canoes. Due to our issues in getting our laminating epoxy shipped as a hazardous material from South Africa, its arrival has been delayed, and we won't see it for another few weeks. Therefore, we have decided to change up the order in which we will build certain sections of the boat. Normally, builders would seam the large panels together, prepare the larger bulkheads, then build the canoes. Once the canoes were in their cradles, the bulkheads would be installed, joining the two canoes together. But due to this laminating epoxy delay, we're going to strip plank the first canoe, then move on to strip planking the forebeam. If the epoxy still hasn't arrived, we'll build the daggerboard casings and daggerboards. If it still isn't here, we'll start to get to work on the cabin top. However, as soon as the laminating epoxy arrives, we'll finish up the first canoe. Yet even after the second canoe is ready, we won't start adding the bulkheads. Instead, we're going to construct the bridge deck floor. The reason we're doing this out of order is so that we have headroom to work. We have to build the bridge deck between the hulls, since that's the only large enough space remaining on the lot. We don't want the bulkheads to span between the hulls already in, or we won't have headroom to work on the bridge deck. Once that has been constructed, we will start adding the bulkheads and eventually raise the bridge deck up and into place. Well, we've gotten most of the larger ones in, so now we're going to move some of the piles of mid-sized pieces and get them to the back of the container where we made room by moving all of that fiberglass and other material to my garage. So we'll get these in, and then we'll put in the last few big pieces and we'll be done. Here are some of the bulkheads, and these will be going in fairly soon, so we wanted to make sure these weren't too buried, so that's why we left them towards the end here, because once those canoes are built and we've got the bridge deck up, the next thing we're going to do is put the bulkheads across. So we will need access to these, so they need to be on the outside of the various piles here. We were really careful. I made a whole list of what order everything was going to be built in, and we put them all inside the container in that order so that we didn't kind of paint ourselves into a corner and have to move all these yet again. We've already moved all these pieces several times as it is, so we wanted to cut that down. So these are those bulkheads going in kind of last. It was really helpful having so many of our crew show up today to move all these things. That was Brian's brother Dale, and this is my cousin Carl, and of course that's Brian, my XO. So they're all working hard at this, and they've all pledged to come and work many days. That's Will Ware. He's a longtime friend of mine, a computer programmer, and here he is out doing physical labor, bless his heart. The guy right there was Mark, another brother of Brian. It's good to have brothers. Here comes Mark. So we're almost done, and just a few more, and then we'll get on to the next task of tomorrow.
All right, here go the last pieces in.
Yay! Well, we can finally start building the boat now. Well, maybe not. The next thing to do is we got to put up the canopy structure next and pour cement down here. But we had to move all this stuff to be able to pour the cement. You may ask why we stacked all of this on this side when we could have stacked some on the other side. Because the first pieces we need immediately are those big ones right there. All of those right there. So these all are going to be coming out for strip planking. Once we're done with all these, then the next sets we need are these right here. Yay! Well, it's Sunday and it's a gorgeous day. See, look, beautiful mountains up there. We're over at a local park here. There's a lake not too far from our house and build site. And we're gonna go some mountain biking today since it's the weekend and we did so well yesterday getting all those large pieces put away, and there's everything on the lot is ready to go. So that means we get a little bit of fun. So we're gonna go out mountain biking. Here we go. All right, up we go. First thing we got to do is climb up a little hill here. It's going to be a bit muddy today because, again, had so much rain, and even though it hasn't rained the last couple days, the hills are still draining. The gorgeous view. We'll stop for that. Our boat build is right over that way, and that's Mount Baldy up there, and right here is our Pudding Stone Lake. And today we're riding all the way around pretty much the lake and up into the hills behind it where we are now. All right, now I get to go down. Been going up a lot. Good morning to you. Beautiful day to be out. If only it would stay this way, but yes, it's going to rain again tomorrow.
Be careful. There's no riders, no walking.
All right, pretty view right there, and then a nice downhill. We love the views on this ride. David Edwards, one of our viewers, commented, being polite, "You're not so young. How does your body cope with all those days of lifting?" Well, this is how. We mountain bike 2 to 3 days a week and go scuba diving off the beach quite often. So we're in pretty good shape. It's a bit ruddy from the rain, but nothing the bike won't do. Bonelli is one of several riding areas within 5-10 minutes of our house. So we've got it pretty easy because we can just grab our mountain bikes and get to a riding area in short order. And we can do a ride in maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours, so it doesn't take up all day. Which means that we'll have plenty of chance to keep riding as we work on the boat and keep that cardiovascular working. Like here's a nice downhill banks, and one thing to remember is on camera things don't look anywhere near as steep as they actually are. So it's a pretty good downhill in here. See, we're picking up speed easily and hitting a little few banks here. Mountain biking is a great sport for keeping your heart in good condition and your whole circulatory system, because you're constantly pedaling and constantly working. And it was really muddy today, so we had to contend with quite a few mud puddles, and that's all left over from those huge rains that we had. So that was our day of mountain biking. One of our users in the comments pointed out that our shelves were bowing, and in the heat, the foam was going to also match that bow in the shelves and warp our foam, and that would be a disaster. So it's kind of an oversight on our part. So today, what we did is we came in and we added a bunch of ribs, and the nice part is we just used a few hydraulic jacks to lift them up so that we could put these ribs in, and we didn't have to unload any of the shelves to get this done. So in the end result, we have straight shelves now because, as you can see, they have supports all the way down now.
That's why we love your comments.
Yes, it is. I don't know if you heard Brian, so I'll repeat it. And that's why we love your comments, because we won't get everything right. And with a bunch of you helping out to point out things that we could do better, we'll get a better job done. So again, we appreciate your comments. Thank you so much. Today, it's raise the canopy structure day. And so you can see that we've already assembled a little bit of it over here. The part on the ground is so that we can make room for the bobcat to come through. And that section over there is ready to be raised. But we have to raise the whole thing at once. So we're gonna drive the bobcat in here, and then we'll lift one end, come over here, lift the other end to get this whole structure up. But it's going to be pretty darn high, so got a little work to do to get that working. But before we start, we're going to put some straps onto the roof sections and some tarps up on them already, so that they're already there when we raise it up. So that's what we're doing today, and off we go. Since we had the bobcat today, we decided to remove this post, which was just in our way at the gate. So we had him yank it out with a chain, which was a lot easier than digging it out with a couple of shovels. And then he could just drive it over and toss it down over the side over here. We'll be out of the way when we're doing our build area. We'll get rid of that later on. Michael is quite handy with that, so we've made good use of him in our construction so far. Here we are putting the straps onto the roof section, and that's just to keep the canvas from sagging down between the different rod supports there. And we thought that would just be a good idea. And this is the first of our tarps we're going to put over the top of this roof section. And we'll strap down the leading edge of this tarp with some baling wire along the leading edge that faces the main winds that we get, the Santa Anas in Southern California. But we're going to leave the trailing edge away from the wind. It still be tied down, but only on the corners by ropes. And then if the wind really tries to lift this thing, those two ropes will let loose because we're just going to use weights to keep them down, and it'll let it exhaust the wind out instead of lifting this whole structure. Because those Santa Ana winds can be 40 miles an hour at times if they get up there certain years. So we just don't want to have it pick up this thing like a giant sail and have it go away. So we're putting in these basically relief valves to let the canvas go if it needs to and flap up and let the wind out.
Okay, we've got nearly all of the tarps up and we're ready to raise it with the bobcat. All right, although this seems pretty low right now, this is going up 26 feet in the air.
The first thing we had to do is bring the bobcat into the center, which is why we left the center tarp out for now, and raise it up enough on this edge to fit the 10-foot lengths of the supports in. Then we just went to the other side and did the same thing, lifted it up and put the 10-footers in. But that's not high enough. The very outer edge of our boat will be around 11 feet in the air, and we need room to walk along that deck. So raising it up 10 feet just isn't anywhere near enough. So we built this strange contraption right here on a double wide pallet so that we could use the bobcat to raise it even higher. And what we had to do was bring it up in sort of sections, because if we tried to raise the whole thing at once, it would bend the poles too much. And so we took it up in sections and put in the supports. You can see them against the wall there. That's the next strut that has to go on to those 10-footers, so it's got to go up that much to get those on. So Michael just coupled that up there and raised it up. You can see the bend a little bit. That's why we couldn't go up too much to start with. So we put those on pallets over there, and now he's raising this end of it, and that'll allow us to get it all the way up so that we can get these extensions on there. The extensions are around 5 feet, and we put them in buckets instead of mounting them into the ground, and the reason for that was we couldn't afford to let them go 2 feet into the ground. It still wouldn't be high enough. So instead we put them in the buckets, and then we'll fill those buckets later in the week with cement. So here we are getting it high enough with that contraption to put those extensions on. And we had to do this in several sections going down the length of the structure, and then we had to go to the other side, and we'll eventually do the same thing. Yes, it was quite a struggle to get some of these on, because we actually had to lift a little bit and bend them upwards to get just to make it in. The bobcat can only lift so far, so we put those 10-foot extensions on there to get it up the rest of the way. This whole structure is only to give us shade. You can see that big gray square of shade that we're getting underneath of there. And that's what we want, so we're not working in the sun all the time. It's not really stop rain or anything else. It's just a shade tent, just to give us shade and keep this from getting fried. Here we are lifting the center section. You see the pallets? That's what we're going to set these on. And actually we just did. And so those 10 footers are resting on those pallets. And then we can go out to the edges and raise them up even higher than that to get the extensions on. And there we go. Now we're hoisting the center up, and then we'll just have that one end to go. And at this point, we'll be finished. And there, the shade tent is up. Today we're getting ready to pour the cement. The cement's arriving tomorrow morning, but so today we have to measure out all the positions for the pads that the cradles for the boat will land on, and also the structures that we're going to use to build the canoes, the bridge deck, and all that stuff. All right, well, we've got the first one here. It was the lowest one, so we've raised it up a little bit, and we're leveling all the rest of them to this level. So we have a level boat when we put it up on the cradles.
Can I take this level off?
Yes. All right, the forms are all done. We're ready for cement to be delivered at 9 a.m. tomorrow, and we'll show you how we are going to pour that and fix that up. And tomorrow morning, we'll pour the cement.
Good morning. It's Friday and today we're pouring cement. So we have the forms all finished on this side, and this side has 2 extra because we're building the canoe on this side. This side doesn't have those because we're building the cradle over here.
As Marianne mentioned, these 2 larger pads here are the positions that will hold the cradles that hold the weight of the entire boat as we're working on it. So we had to make sure these were large enough and strong enough to each hold around, say, 6,500 pounds of weight, because the whole boat's around 2,600. Right now it won't be quite that heavy because we won't have the mast and boom and certain things on there until we get it to the water. But we needed these supports to hold the cradles and hold the boat. All right, so we've got the cement poured and we've got it tamped and we've got it float troweled, and just a quick troweling on top. We're going to let it set up a little more, and then we'll trowel out all the lines, edge it, and we'll be done. We weren't really too worried about making this an absolute perfect surface, as long as it was almost, perfectly level. All right, we're mostly done with the troweling, and Brian's just putting some edging on it, and we're going to call it done for the day, and the cement pads are in. So tomorrow we're going to get to making the strip planking structure so that we can start putting our 50-foot long panels together. We'll have to put biscuits in and seam them up. And then we'll start cutting strips, and by Monday we'll be strip planking the canoes on the hull. And so at that point, we finally have started to work on the boat itself instead of just getting the lock ready. So I'm ready to get going on the boat, so I'm excited about that. All right, well, it's Friday, and we did it. We did all those days. Every day we had that major task this week, and we got each one of them done.
But we are so tired.
Gosh, yes, I am really tired. But there's no rest for us because we're working over the weekend too. So I've got a whole crew coming tomorrow, Saturday, to assemble all of the huge 50-foot long table that we need to have to do all the cutting of the strips to start strip planking. And then on Sunday, we've got to get those big panels all epoxy together, and we have to construct our strong back to hold the forms that we're going to build the canoe on. So all kinds of more work to go. But that means that Monday we will actually start building the boat. And that's why we're working so hard these days, because we really want to get going. And so that's our goal, and we're achieving it so far. So we'll try to stay on schedule. So that's it for this week.
Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe and ring the bell icon to be notified of our next video.
And thank you to all of our patrons. We had a couple new ones, and we really appreciate that because there are so many little things we have to buy. And they just keep piling up, of course. But I live at Home Depot now, buying nuts, bolts, screws, and 2x4s constantly and things like that. And that's just the nature of the project. And we knew that would happen. But there's just things that you can't plan for, and they keep coming up. But we're working it, and we're going to get that boat done. So we'll see you all next week when we start building the boat. So that's a big week. See you then.